And I've got a list of questions, Pastor Arrowood, that I want to just ask you and just kind of walk us through some of those things to give us just a little sense of the beginnings of the ministry. And so can you tell us how it was that God led you to Charlotte from the very beginning? I'm not sure, maybe you grew up here, I don't know, but how was it that God put on your heart to plant a church in Matthews, North Carolina?
He did me a favor, because through my college years, I had it in my mind that I wanted to go to Albany, New York, and start a church. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that I didn't know how to drive on ice and snow, so God just changed my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And the church we used to go to had some inside problems. And there were people there that wanted to leave. And they contacted me, and there was about 8 or 10 of them. And that was the very first beginning.
Okay.
That's how I got the first dozen.
Okay. And so where did you grow up then?
I haven't grown up yet, preacher. When I grow up, I want to be laying horizontal to the ground. I grew up over in East Tennessee. I'll mention this later on, a certain place over there. I grew up just out of Jonesboro, Tennessee, and lived there, moved away from there right out of high school, and went to D.C., and stayed there for a while till the Lord permitted me to come back to the Promised Land.
Okay. All right. And were you living here then before you went to Bible college?
Yes.
And then came back here?
Yes.
So, and you, I think, were with Xerox?
Yeah, we moved here with Xerox Corporation in 61. 61.
Okay. And then from there, God called you into the ministry, and you went to Bible college, and
went to Bible college, still with Xerox.
Okay.
When I came back from college, still with Xerox. So Xerox has been good to me.
Okay.
Some of those guys that can drive on ice and snow understand Xerox from Rochester and that area.
Okay.
I'm gonna kid these northern friends. Is it all right?
Sure.
Which one's the most dangerous?
Well,
I got my men here today. I mean, they starting think it's going to be on again. I'm kidding.
Okay, tell us when you got started, and what all did you do to prepare for your first service in 1969 in June?
Well, our first thing we had to do when we got to Charlotte from college was to find a place to meet. And we had one service. The first service we had in our duplex, 3-bedroom duplex over off of Central Avenue. We held the first service there. And we apparently I know we took up an offering because I'm a Baptist person. I know we did that. I don't know how much it was, but it was enough to establish a bank account. So I took it to what was then the First Union National Bank and set up a church account. And it's talking about starting a church, and the teller, everyone I might have some news for you. So she called me back, or he called me back and told me who to talk to. Down on Commonwealth Avenue. You want to know their names?
Yeah. Do we know any of them here, or are they?
No.
No. So.
No, it was a Mullis family and a Gunner family, and my family is 5 of us. There were 4 of the Gunners, and how much is that? 5 for 4.
I remember seeing those names when I was looking
But they were the ones that came, and then over a period of time, we got more people from that area that came.
Okay. Yeah. I noticed later down on the list that the Tanners, Richard and Lucy Tanner, came in then. So, you got any stories on Mr. Tanner that you could?
Not that I can tell. No, those been my friends for years.
Yeah. Amen.
I still don't understand him.
Well, tell us about the first few weeks when you got started after that first meeting, and then you make the deposit there, and you start at the Allen Organ. Can you just kind of walk us through the first few weeks and months, and that went from there to how long were you at Allen Organ, and how did you end up at this property? And
I kind of forgot how hard it was. Mm-hmm. No, it was, in those days, it's much easier than it is now. Now, we visited all, and I think you all do too here, mm-hmm. but we visited all over this place. Mm-hmm. And it slowly grew like that. And ask me again.
Yeah. Just walking through the first days of when you got from the Allen Organ place to how did you end up over here on Margaret Wallace Road?
I can say God put us here, don't you? I can say that all them questions. No, of course, all along we were looking for a permanent place, something that would be permanent for us. And we got that by, I think in August of 1969, I guess, we organized the mm-hmm. church under the authority of Bible Baptist Church in Crane, Missouri. Mm-hmm. One of my professors came mm-hmm. and led us in the organization. And the following day, we were out just looking, just looking for a place, land or vacant house or whatever. And we drove down Margaret Wallace and saw this horrible-looking pasture with barbed wire fences up, but no meeting place. Well, it did have that little white house back at the back. And we decided we needed to find out who owned that. Maybe we could rent that house. So we continued up the joining driveway and got acquainted there with the Tarletons. Shirley's mom and dad lived there. And we asked if that land would be available. And he said, I don't know, it belongs to my son. So who is your son and where does your son live? We got that. And we visited, best I remember, we visited Shirley in his home that time. I found out later on that I think we gave Shirley $105 a month rent mm-hmm. on that place. And he carried, he did all paperwork and the money part. And he told me, I didn't think you'd make it. Mm-hmm. Hmm. A lot he knew, wasn't it? Hmm. So we bought or rented the property and started a little bit more like church. And we finally had a little problem. Didn't have any place to put the people. One Sunday morning, I don't know what's special, but we had 109 people in that little old house.
In the White House?
In the White House. And back in what would be the kitchen, I couldn't even see it from where I was standing at the pulpit. So I preached to people I could see and people could only hear. Mm-hmm. So that got us moving along and on the other building, on the first building. And to arrange financing for that, we had a bond issue. We sold bonds, coupon bonds, you bought a bond and maybe 6 months, if you had a 6 months bond, you clip your coupon, take it to the bank and get your money. So we did a bond issue. And believe it or not, that first building that we built only cost $40,000.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
And that's the wing that's right over here.
That's the wing.
Yeah.
I'll get my directions wrong.
That's where the nursery, right as you come in the door, is the one on your right, where the nursery and the school office is there now.
And we didn't get completely through with that building until we realized it's too small. So we added another maybe 15 feet, running feet there to it. But again, we had just around 40,000, maybe a little bit more for that first building. That's completely furnished. Pews, baptistry, everything. Wow. And we started, that was in 71 when we started that building.
Okay. Was that, did a lot of the men in the church build that, or?
We had connections. Shirley had connections. Of course, he made cabinets, and I'm sure those were his cabinets that he made in there. And we had a man, Jim Lane. You know Jim. Jim was there, and he had connections with Heatley and Air people. And I forget who had connections with the others, but we got it up pretty rapidly.
Oh yeah.
And 1972 was our best year. I mean, we had more people later on. Excuse me just a minute. We had 123 people saved that year.
Wow.
And almost all of them were baptized.
Wow.
It wasn't just a little prayer that they made, but they got the real thing. And they stuck in there for years. And
wow, that was in 72.
72. We had a very strong missionary program. Of course, missions given to the missionaries cost a whole lot more now than ours was $10 a month. So we had a bunch of people, missionaries, and that's about where we I think that answers your question.
Now, when you mentioned missions, I just happened to think, for years, the church, when I came here 17 years ago now, the church, 10% of everything that came into the general fund goes to missions. Was that started then, early on, or was that sometime later that came?
Well, we supported the missionaries semi-directly, a certain amount every month. Matter of fact, we had so many missionaries, it's my thinking is clear, we had at least one missionary a month, maybe more, because if they came, we'd, of course, help them a little bit. I couldn't find the information that I knows in the file somewhere, but there was one year that our giving to missions exceeded our general costs at home. And it wasn't by a few dollars more, but it was, I just noticed that when I was trying to get some stuff together. But the church has always been a strong missionary church, always. And looking up on the wall out there, I see y'all continued on like that.
and so how do you go from, how'd you get from the building over here in 72 to the building over here? The two-story one, I think, was in 75.
It was.
Okay. Tell us about.
Well, we just needed the space. The building over here would seat a congregation twice the size of the one over here. Plus, in the basement, we had Sunday school rooms. I forget how many. It's probably at least 10, but I'm not sure of that. But we had Sunday school in the basement. And all of this was completely furnished. Now, that building, you may not let me preach, so you think I'm telling you a story. That's $100,000.
The two-story building?
The two-story.
$100,000?
$100,000.
No, you can't preach today. I'm sorry.
And it was financed through somebody in the church. So we didn't have to take 6 months to get a loan or take 6 months to prove our character and all that. It was get on it and go. And And the men, again, got together. At that time, I had a youth director, and one week we had we put the floor joists in because they were one-piece deal, you know, no cutting, no mistakes and all that. And then the larger number of men came in and floored that and stood the walls up, and we had trusses on the roof, so crane to get them up. I don't even think we used a crane. I forget now. But that's how it started. It was homemade.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that one with bonds or anything like that?
No, this is a straight loan from somebody in the church.
Okay, yeah.
Love those people.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
No, it's more than the fact that God had blessed that they could, but it's that they did. You know, they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about in the early days? What were the biggest challenges that you found in the early days at the church?
You know, we never had a great deal of problem with people. Normally, every once in a while somebody get crossed up, but normally not many problems. So then we didn't have that problem, and you were always trying to do what you're supposed to do to reach people, to get them to come, and that's why we covered so much of it. We went to Shamrock Drive, Eastway Drive, all the Commonwealth, and Old Monroe Road into Charlotte. Over, I think even we went over around South Park some. We didn't, and I didn't have any real challenges really. Believe me, honest.
No.
It's hard to believe, being a Baptist pastor and being able to say I didn't have many problems. Did not have many problems.
Especially with Richard Tanner in the church. I can't believe it.
Well, we found something that Richard could do outside, so we let him. I've just ruined my relationship now here, and Richard and I have been friends ever since he came to church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe it took an awful lot of time to get him and Lucy here. But once they got here, they stuck.
Mm-hmm.
They stuck here, still here.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. So, not too many big challenges. Blessings, just really unusual blessings. 72 was obviously a really neat year.
Yeah.
Anything else just really sticks out in your mind?
You think I'm awful, but I'm 78 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And something's left me. Hearing, smelling, remembering, all that's gone. Tell me something I know, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Ask me something I remember.
Okay, tell me about the school.
Oh, boy.
How did that? I know 76, I think the school started.
That would be close. We did that, started the school because of the effect the government was trying to have upon training our children. So we said, well, we can do the job. And I think we started with about 35 kids, I think 35, right in that area. And we used ACE, the Accelerated Christian Education Material. Mm-hmm. And we had the same problem that the public schools have now, that the teachers are not paid enough. That was always a concern, because we did not have, matter of fact, we didn't charge tuition in the beginning. It was strictly a church deal, because we wanted as far away from Raleigh as we could get, and don't want them around messing around. And but the school was a little bit of a drag in a way upon the church, financially anyway. But I believe we overcame that generous streak, and people had to start paying. And we had we had families in the church that took turns cleaning and school. They made sure that was all done properly. Mm-hmm. But it was a challenge.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed in the record that Steve Triplet was he the first administrator of the school?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my second mistake. No, I'd say that Steve's one of my preacher boys. He's a preacher boy out of this church. Mm-hmm. I think I could tell you 2 or 3 more. Mm-hmm.
And did Brother Steve, if I saw right, I think he must have gotten saved here. I saw that he had gotten baptized.
In 72, I think.
Yes, in 72.
In the whole family.
Okay.
Plus several more from Burnett Hill. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't know about Burnett Hill.
I don't.
Okay. I'll just keep it to myself.
Okay.
No, great bunch of people up there. Burnett's gathered together up there on Lawyers Road. And
so I'm not familiar with that. That's, I guess, a particular location where a lot of Burnetts
you're catching on.
Lived.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I forget how many families. Grandma Burnett lived there, and Steve lived there, and these people, basically all of them came to church here. We could probably 12 or 15 Burnetts one Sunday could be here from off the hill.
Okay.
They had fishing ponds I could go to. Grandma did.
Okay. And so then Brother Steve comes here, he gets saved and baptized. The Lord calls him to preach. And I don't know how many know that, most of you probably would know, Brother Steve pastors today right off of on Albemarle Road.
Fellowship Baptist.
Fellowship Baptist on Albemarle.
Steve was a college man, mm-hmm. and he did a good job as administrator, and he went to Baptist Bible College to train for the ministry, mm-hmm. and came back and helped out in a way. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Good man.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a blessing to see today still being faithful and mm-hmm. preaching up there. So
still hanging in there.
Yeah. Okay. In the beginning days, what were I know you said you visited a lot in the community and stuff. Was that the primary way that you evangelized people? The primary ways that you got word out in the community that Bible Baptist Church existed here on Margaret Wallace Road?
It was by word of mouth. We advertised. I've got some of the old clippings from the Southeast News. I don't even know whether they publish it anymore, but we would run an ad in there. We had, we never did any of the big things sometimes at churches too, but I believe mouth to mouth, face to face is the way to handle it. Mm-hmm. And it seems like I'll add something to that, but I forget what it is. Mm-hmm.
But it was primarily just visiting around and stuff like that.
And as best I remember, we had a large number of people from the church that came to visitation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole lot different now. Mm-hmm. If I had, it's people, it's hard for them to open the door when the doorbell rings because you never know who's going to be there.
Sure, yeah. The culture's a lot.
It's culture. It's different, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay, and then in so the church started in '69 mm-hmm. in your home, then from the Allen, Oregon place, and then a few months later comes here.
Little White House.
With the $105 a month. I think it was a rent-to-own agreement, and then after a year, I believe it was, that the property was given to the church.
He gave it back.
Yeah. And then 72, the C wing we call it was built, and mm-hmm. then this 2-story building, we called it the B wing, that was built
75.
in 75. School starts in 76, somewhere around
We
there.
used this building over here as the school building, then
Okay.
the first building.
Okay. Oh, so the first building began over there then, the school began in the
It began in
C-wing.
that building over there.
Okay. All right. And then in 79, I think it was, is when Pastor Phillips came then to the ministry. And then the gym was built then in 1980. And then these two buildings, the C wing and the B wing, a lobby was built that joined the two wings together. And then this building was built in 89, I believe it was. So, what about any counsel, any advice that you would give us today in reaching our community and continuing on? Any thoughts there for us?
It looks to me like you're doing the right thing. It takes people to get people. If it's some event, maybe you draw a lot of people, but that event gets gone. As soon as you close out the service, it's gone. But the people are. We could not imagine if half of the people that's here right now would actively visit, what a difference it would make in the church. Maybe that many come, I don't know. Yeah. You folks, if I never want to offend anybody by what I say. The devil, I like to call him names, but I don't want. I'm cut from a different piece of wood than your pastor.
Yeah.
See? And I told my pastor the first time I played golf with him, I said I should have been born 200 years earlier. So that'll tell you where I come from. What you see is what you get. But I don't ever want to offend someone with something I say that should not have been said. I'm a real Southerner. Now, some of you're going to have a problem with that. I know it. That's all right. I forgive you. But I think Southern all the way. You know, that's why I said that about the ice and the snow. What we get from folks that come from Rochester, they say, well, you got to know how to drive and that stuff. And guess what? I see his car in the median the next time. No, it's just, I joke with you a lot. I'm a happy guy. I know the Lord. He's been good. And I cry when I preach. Our life has been a life not 100% what it ought to be, but my wife and I have been married for 59 years, and she still beats me. Her scare, you know, you that are got up around that, you know how if you just bump something, next you've got a blood comes, you know, and. She just had a heart attack, by the way. Stand up, Betty. Where is she? And I can't talk about her because we're just like that.
Amen.
So we've been through a lot the last 6 months or so. But she's kind of got a clear bill of health. The doctor says the heart looks very good. I said, Doc, did you look on the right place? You know? No. But we're so thankful to the Lord for what he's done. If he had not done what he did, I'm sure I would be without a wife today. And we'll talk about that in a little while. Because I believe our Heavenly Father is in charge.
Amen. And
a heart attack's nothing to him. And all this other stuff that we have, it's nothing to our Savior, really. And What else, preacher?
Well, we're going to have to wrap things up here, but I just want to make sure that...
I started having fun.
Yeah.
You just now got me crying.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that if I'm understanding right, you're as our founding pastor, your counsel, advice to us in continuing on in the ministry until the Lord comes back is that we are engaged in, as a people, in reaching people, more so by our interaction with people, more than major events. That we could have a major event here, but if I heard you right, that you have that event, but at the end you close the service and that event's over. But the having the mindset in our own hearts and lives of that people do everywhere we go, they need the Lord, and us just continuing to have that burden to reach people one-on-one.
Well, the commandment, the main commandment I think Jesus gave his church was to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That's our job. And it's so much that churches get into that drags them down rather than builds them up, thinking that we've got to do this because everybody else is doing it, or it seems like they're really growing because they do such and such. But the Lord has asked us, he's told us, commanded us to preach the gospel to everybody. And that's rewarding, isn't it?
Amen.
It's rewarding.
And that's where our focus needs to be.
Focus on that.
Yeah. Well, I know, and I know I speak for our whole church family, that we are so thankful for you, and we're grateful for the burden that God put in your heart from East Tennessee, and then brought you here, and then to Bible college, and then the burden to see Bible Baptist Church get started 45 years ago. And we're thankful that God used you the way He did, and really do covet your prayers that we'll continue to be a faithful ministry for the Lord.
We'll do that.
So,
it's good.
Okay.
It's good.
All right.